Hi, my name is Madeline Woodall, and I will be sharing the Villisca axe murder. The Villisca axe murder took place on June 10, 1912 in Villisca, Iowa, where 8 people were unalived with an axe. Josiah Moore, aged 34, and his wife and their 4 children. Also their neighbors, Lena and Ina Stillinger. Now Josiah Moore was one of the town's most prominent businessmen. He secured finances with booming John Deere Company, and the family was very well liked and admired throughout their small town. So, on the night of June 10th, the family attended children's function at their local church. So the Moore family invited Ina and Lena Stillinger over for a sleepover. They took a short 5-minute walk home, and around 10 p.m. went to bed. And later that night, the unalivings took place. Josiah and Sarah were the first victims, and the weapon, an axe from Josiah's own coal shed. Josiah was hit 30 times, which sounds pretty personal attack to me. He then went downstairs, and the children sleeping in their beds were the next victims. The next morning, the neighbors grew concerned because the house was very quiet. Josiah also didn't answer a phone call from his clerk. The neighbors then called Josiah's brother. Since the family wasn't up doing their normal morning routines, Josiah's brother arrived at a ghastly sight. And there were a couple odd things at the crime scene. Investigators found a 4-pound slab of bacon next to the axe. Pieces of clothing were put on the victims' faces and the entry doors, as well as the mirrors. They found a plate of uneaten food, which consists of beans and bread and a bowl of bloody water, in the kitchen. And then he locked the door behind him. So investigators found cigarette butts in the closet, where they believe he may have been hiding. Others say he was hiding in the attic in the barn watching them. Now, investigations were handled way differently back then. Once the police showed up, concerned townspeople gathered around the house. A doctor on scene quoted telling the townspeople this: "Don't go in there, boys. You'll regret it into the last day of your life." However, around 100 people walked through the crime scene, with the victims still in their beds. And the Marshal Hank Horton let some of the locals hold the weapons. Even some took gruesome parts of the crime and victims. Now about the suspects. First, we have Frank Jones, Josiah's previous employer. Josiah worked for Frank for 9 years. Josiah set up the competing business directly across the street. Frank was also the state politician. Next is Joanna Jones, was the daughter of Frank Jones, and it was rumored that she had an affair with Josiah. Next suspect is Reneverd Kelly, who admitted to the crime but later revoked it, stating it was due to the police brutality. Others believed that it had just been a drifter. Unfortunately, this case was never solved. However, the house is a museum and tours are available. You can even stay overnight. With all this being said, I personally would not stay in the house. However, I do think that our first suspect, Frank Jones, could be the killer. His motive being that his daughter-in-law may have had an affair with Josiah, leading Frank to become resentful to the man that is breaking up his son's marriage, as well as Josiah being his former employer for many years. I believe that there was a possibility that Frank's business was crashing and he was angry at the fact that Josiah's business was still thriving.